Not cutting down your perennial flowers can actually be one of the best things you do for your garden. When everything else is dying back, those dried seed heads and stems can look beautiful. Sea holly, for example, keeps that silvery glow and brings a bit of structure and texture when most of the garden's looking bare.
But it's not just about looks. Leaving plants standing helps wildlife too, providing food, shelter and a bit of warmth when things get tough out there. We've picked out our 10 favourites that look great over winter. They'll keep your garden looking good and help the creatures that call it home.
This one is an absolute favourite in our garden, and it's called sea holly. Even when everything else has died back, these steely blue flower heads keep their shape and colour for months. They look amazing when they catch the frost or a bit of low winter sun, almost like they're made of silver. The bees absolutely adore them in summer, so we always leave the seed heads standing once they're finished. They add that architectural look to borders, and birds love picking at the seed heads too. Plus, the stiff stems don't flop or go mushy, and they hold up really well through winter. We do have a few dotted around the garden, and honestly they look just as good now as they did back in July, just in a different way.
We never prune our hydrangeas in autumn and winter. The faded flower heads turn these lovely papery shades of bronze and cream, and when the frost settles on them, they look incredible. They give a bit of structure and height when the rest of the garden's gone flat, and they protect the new buds underneath from harsh weather. It is tempting to chop them back once they're done flowering, but leaving them alone keeps the shrub looking full and helps it get through winter in better shape. We'll tidy them up in spring once the worst of the frost has passed, but for now they'll earn their keep by just looking beautiful. Once you do cut off the flowers in spring, why not bring them inside and use them as a decorative piece? They dry beautifully and they keep their shape, so they'll stay looking great for years. Pop them in a vase, or you could use them in a wreath, and you've got a bit of the garden to enjoy indoors, even when everything outside is still waking up.
Artichokes aren't just for eating. If you leave them to flower, they turn into these huge sculptural thistles with deep purple blooms that look absolutely stunning. The seed heads dry beautifully and stay standing tall in winter, adding real drama and height to the garden. In my opinion, they're one of the best plants out here at this time of year. The bees can't get enough of them during the summer, but later on, birds love to perch on the dried heads. So even when they've completely faded, they still bring so much texture and interest to the borders.
Rudbeckia we always leave standing, because those dark seed heads look fantastic once the petals are dropped. They stand proud above the border, catch the frost beautifully, adding a bit of contrast against all the softer winter shapes. The leaves can look a bit bedraggled, but just strip them off to smarten it up a bit. The birds love them too. Goldfinches in particular will happily spend ages picking out the seeds. By spring, they've usually done a brilliant job of clearing them for us. It's another plant that gives back even after it's finished flowering. So we just leave it to do its thing until it's time to give it a tidy up in March.
Echinops was a bit of an experiment for us. It's our first time growing it, and I'll admit I wasn't completely sure at first. The kind of spiky leaves look a bit odd when it's young, but the older it gets, the better it looks. It's one of the bushiest plants in the garden when it's in full bloom. Then, once the flowers fade, we'll leave the seed heads standing because they still look pretty amazing and provide shelter for insects through the winter. On frosty mornings, the dried spheres kind of sparkle in the light, and you often see small birds perching on them, picking at the seeds. So it's a plant that continues to give something back to wildlife all year round.
Verbena is a plant that just keeps on giving. In summer, it's constantly covered in butterflies and bees, and even now, long after the flowers have faded, those tall, wiry stems bring height and movement to the garden. We always leave them standing because they sway beautifully in the winter wind, and the seed heads catch the frost like little jewels. Birds love picking at the seeds, and insects use the hollow stems for shelter when it gets cold. It's such a light and airy plant that it never looks messy, even when it's past its best. It just blends in perfectly with the softer tones of winter.
Sedum is one of my absolute favourite plants. It tends to look great all year round. In summer, the flower heads are absolutely alive with bees and butterflies, And once they fade, they dry into these beautiful rusty brown domes that hold their shape right through winter. Even when everything else has collapsed, the sedum stays upright, adding structure and colour to the borders. The dry heads catch the frost perfectly, and they look almost sculptural in the low winter light. It really is one of the easiest plants to grow too. It just tends to get bigger and better every year with almost no effort. We always leave ours standing until spring, when we cut it back to make way for new shoots that are pushing through underneath.
Asters are brilliant for extending the season, flowering right into autumn when most of the garden's starting to wind down. Once the petals have gone, we always leave the stems and seed heads standing because they still add texture and a bit of height to borders, and they also look great in pots. The seed heads look lovely dusted with frost, and the hollow stems give insects somewhere to shelter over winter. By spring, the old growth protects the fresh shoots coming up from the base, so it's win all round. They're such hard-working plants, feeding late pollinators, supporting wildlife through winter, and then bouncing back every year with new growth. Pampas grass is one we'll never cut back before winter. These huge feathery plumes look incredible swaying in the wind, especially when they catch the low light or get dusted with frost. They bring instant drama to the garden when everything else is starting to fade. As you can see, the robins enjoy perching on the stems as well. The dense clump at the base provides brilliant shelter for small birds and other wildlife through the cold months, and the seed heads are handy food source too. We wait until spring to give it a tidy up once the worst of the frost has passed, and then it's already starting to push out new growth ready for another season. Now is a perfect time to start planning which perennials you want to plant next year, and in this video we show you 12 of our favourite picks, so make sure you watch it next.